Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today let's talk about the history of novels. First of all, let's analyze the difference between fiction novels and non-fiction novels. Definition. Fiction novels means narratives created from imagination or creative thought. Non-fiction novel means narratives based on real events or people or facts. The purpose of a fiction novel is primarily to entertain, provoke imagination, or explore themes. Purpose of a non-fiction novel is to inform, document, or interpret real-life experiences. Now coming to the characters, in a fiction novels often include imaginary or symbolic characters. Non-fiction novels are based on real people, though names may sometimes be changed. Now the plot of fiction novels: invented or dramatized events shaped by the author's creativity. Now the plot of non-fiction novels follows actual events presented with the narrative techniques. Now example for fiction novels, we can say Harry Potter, The Great Gatsby, in 1984, etc. An example for non-fiction novels, we can say In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, then The Diary of Anne Frank. Novel writing is a creative art form that allows authors to explore the human experience through invented characters, settings, and events. It often blends imagination with reality, offering a lens through which readers can engage with the complexities of life, culture, and emotions. Now let's go to the classical precursors of novels. Ancient Greece and Rome. Early proto-novels appear in classical antiquity, though the form as we know it was not fully developed. The Golden Ass by Apuleius in the 2nd century AD is often considered the first ancient novel. It combines adventure, humor, and mysticism. Daphnis and Chloe by Longus from Greece is another early narrative with the romantic elements and psychological depth. Classical literature also saw historical fiction and philosophical dialogues, blending narrative with intellectual discourse, laying a foundation for the novel form. Medieval romances, 5th to 15th century. The medieval period gave rise to chivalric romances, which were typically written in verse and later prose. These romantic epics combined adventure, magic, and a courtly love. Key works include Beowulf in England, The Song of Roland from France, and Tristan and Isolde from Germany. The Arabian Nights, Middle Eastern, blended folk tales, framing stories, which influenced the European narrative traditions. The Picaresque novel, a precursor to the modern novel, appeared in Spain with works like Lazarillo de Toms. Renaissance prose fiction, 15th to early 17th century. The invention of the printing press in the 15th century allowed the spread of books and literature more widely than ever before. Miguel de Cervantes' work, Don Quixote, 1605 1615, is often seen as the first modern novel merging realism and satire to parody the chivalric romances. Cervantes' work marked a shift toward individualism and a more complex view of human psychology. In England, Sir Thomas Malory's Le Morte d'Art, 1485, and a Thomas More's work, Utopia, 1516, blended elements of the fictional and the political. The Italian Renaissance saw works like The Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio, which combined short stories and narratives to explore human nature. Early modern novel, 17th century. The 17th century saw the development of the picaresque and epistolary novels. Pamela and Clarissa by Samuel Richardson from England were some of the first epistolary novels. Epistolary novel means novels written as a series of letters, influencing later works. In France, Zeno de Bergerac's work, The Other World, 1657, experimented with satirical science fiction-like narrative. Again, from France is another writer, Madame de la Fayette, whose work, La Princesse de Clèves, 1678, is a highly influential psychological novel, marking a shift towards character-driven stories. Balthazar Gracian of Spain wrote philosophical fables and allegories, influencing moralistic novel writing. The rise of the novel in the 18th century. The 18th century saw the formal birth of the modern novel with a strong emphasis on individual psychology, realism, and a social commentary. Key figures: Daniel Defoe, who wrote the work Robinson Crusoe, 1719, one of the first novels written in the English language. Then Jonathan Swift's work, Gulliver's Travels, 1726, a satirical narrative blending adventure and a social critique. Then Samuel Richardson's work, Pamela, 1740, influencing the development of the epistolary novel. Then Henry Fielding's Tom Jones, 1749, a picaresque novel with a focus on moral development. Then Jean-Jacques Rousseau's Julie or the New Eloise, 1761, an early example of sentimental novel. Then Voltaire's work, Candide, 1759, was an attack on optimism and a satirical novel. Then Catherine the Great of Russia, The Instruction, appeared in 1767, a philosophical treatise within the framework of a dialogue. Now coming to Romantic and Gothic novels of late 18th century, early 19th century. The Romantic era saw the novel evolve toward the exploration of individualism, emotion, and the supernatural. Gothic novels flourished with a dark, mysterious settings and brooding characters. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, 1818, a key work of early science fiction. Anna Radcliffe's work, The Mysteries of Udolpho, 1794, an influential Gothic novel. The Byronic hero, complex and troubled, became a hallmark of romantic fiction, with a Lord Byron's work Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, 1812-1818, as a long narrative poem with a novelistic features. Jane Austen's work Pride and Prejudice, 1813, focusing on societal expectations and individual desires. Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, 1862, a sweeping historical novel exploring social justice. Now coming to Victorian and realist novels of mid to late 19th century. The Victorian era saw a rise in the realist novel with a focus on social issues, morality, and a psychological complexity. Important Victorian novelists include Charles Dickens, whose work Oliver Twist, 1837, Great Expectations, 1861, exploring social inequalities. George Eliot's Middlemarch, 1871, one of the first psychologically complex novels. Thomas Hardy's Tales of the D'Aubervilliers, 1891, examining fatalism and a rural life. In Russia, major novelists developed expansive works with a deep philosophical and moral conscience. Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace, 1869, and Anna Karenina, 1877, monumental works examining moral and philosophical dilemmas. Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, 1866, and The Brothers Karamazov, 1880, explored psychological and existential themes. Now coming to modernist novels, early 20th century, 1900 to 1945. Modernism broke away from conventional narratives focusing on fragmentation, subjectivity, and alienation. Writers experimented with stream of consciousness, non-linear narratives, and psychoanalysis. Key modernist writers include James Joyce, whose work Ulysses, 1922, a stream of consciousness masterpiece. Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway, 1925, exploring the inner consciousness of characters. And Franz Kafka's The Trial, 1925, dealing with the absurdity and the bureaucracy. William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury, 1929, an experimental exploration of time and perspective. Marcel Proust's work In Search of Lost Time, 1913 to 1927, focusing on memory and the passage of time. Now coming to post-war and postmodern novels from 1945 to 1980s. Post-World War II fiction dealt with a trauma, disillusionment, and the absurdity of existence. Postmodernism rejected conventional narratives, embracing irony, metafiction, and intertextuality. Thomas Pynchon, Gravity's Rainbow, 1973, a complex fragmented narrative. Samuel Beckett's Molly, 1955, dealing with the existential themes. Gabriel Garcia Marquez's book 100 Years of Solitude, 1967, a landmark magical realism novel. Italo Calvino's If on a Winter's Night a Traveler, 1979, exploring the relationship between reader and the text. Toni Morrison's Beloved, 1987, examining slavery and memory. Now coming to contemporary novels, 1980s to the present. Contemporary novels cover a wide range of genres, styles, and cultural experiences, reflecting global issues and modern concerns. Writers explore identity, gender, race, technology, and political struggles. Key trends include autofiction. Autofiction means a hybrid between memoir and fiction. Example, the writings of Karl Ove Knausgaard. Then we have a cli-fic, that means climate fiction. Example, Margaret Atwood's work, Madame Trilogy. Then we have a speculative fiction, just like Kazuo Ishiguro's work, Never Let Me Go. Then intersectionality and diasporic narratives from authors like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, Jhumpa Lahiri, and Ozian Buna.